What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junk Drummer TV, and welcome back to episode 5 or 6 of the Know Your Role interview show. And I am honored and excited to have, dude, I forgot to ask to make sure I was saying your name right before all this. I'm going to try it, and you're going to tell me if I'm wrong or right. I have Baard Kolstad from Leprous.
That's I'll approve that.
Oh, no,
Yeah,
tell me how it
bored.
is. Tell me how it's supposed to be said.
No, it's bored actually. Lots of people say Bard, but it's we have this special RD sound in Norwegian, which is bored. Duh, duh. It's very strange, but I don't expect any foreigners to nail that.
Well, when I did a reaction video for you doing Illuminate, which is more like an analysis, and probably the fastest halftime shuffle I think I've ever seen played. And there were so many comment section. There are so many commenters like, it's Bard. I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm from the southern part of America. We barely speak English correctly, much less names we don't know. So, man, after really listening to the last 3 records that you are on with Leprous, I just kind of figure that like you just eat, sleep, and play drums for like 14 hours a day.
Yeah, I wish that was true, but I mean, before COVID and everything, it was touring or studio almost all the time, rehearsing for tours, rehearsing for studio, and yeah, of course, I've dedicated my whole life to drumming and music for sure, and being in a band and playing in a band, travel. So yeah, right now I'm renovating, for instance, this apartment, and I cannot do anything. I don't understand the easiest manuals for any, so I need help or hire people for everything. So I guess I put in Norway we say put all the eggs in one bottle. Like I've invested everything in one very tiny thing, which is drums. So yeah, you're kind of right, but I also walk around and lose my stuff all the time, and keep searching for stuff I lose all the time. That's also a big part of my daily life. So my head is all over the place all the time.
You know, the girl or the woman that actually connected us is a mutual friend of ours named Joanna or Joanna. I'm not sure. She's Portuguese. And she said when she first met you, you were looking for your drumsticks before a show.
Okay, yeah, that might be me. I can't deny that. I don't remember.
So in your apartment, are you able to have like a full drum set, or do you have like an electronic drum set so you can practice?
Good question. I just recently moved, so I will definitely have my TD30 kit rigged up here pretty soon. But I live pretty close to my rehearsal space where I have my drums, and I also right now I'm so often in a studio just doing a lot of session stuff. So my gear is everywhere.
So, you know, that's something that I've talked about. You know, I'm a drum teacher in real life. When you have a practice space, you tend to like, you know, I have an electronic drum set. I live in a townhouse, which is kind of like a 2-story apartment in America. So I can't have a real drum set. So I have an electronic drum set. And I think that when you have like a practice space, you are more likely to be more deliberate and go practice and practice with like, you know, this is the time that I have. I'm going to go to that space and practice, and I'm going to get more shit done than just like, well, there's my electronic drum set over there. I'll sit down here in a minute after I watch, you know, 2 hours of something on Netflix. Do you find that it's more, it makes you more, focused on when you are going to go and set and do that deliberate practice when you have a space to go to?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also share that room with a lot of other people. So I need to schedule in when I can practice. And this has been like, I mean, the last 4 or 5 years I've lived in Oslo, and that's just the way it had to be. Yeah, definitely. And I'm not really a fan of rehearsing or doing a lot of rehearsing on electronic kits, to be honest.
It's not the same. It's definitely not the same.
I mean, give me a shitty kick drum and a shitty snare and cheapest hi-hat you have, or sorry, I'm speaking very downwards again, but I mean, give me that can also be inspiring. I mean, just playing with something that says and in an ugly way, that can be nice to explore for an hour or so, just as an inspiration. Difference,
man,
you know.
That's what you brought up is something that I read. You know, Jack DeJohnette.
The sound is here. You know, the sound is here.
That's what Jack. Okay, so you know Jack DeJohnette, right? The legendary jazz drummer, Miles
Oh
Davis,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
read an interview with him once, and he said that one of the things that he would do to get himself out of like his regular mindset is to tune his drum set terribly. Is to go
Hmm.
out of his way and play the shittiest stuff that he could play, and what you just said, make that sound good.
Yeah, and I guess for me it's a natural it's a natural consequence of just being having to play so much different kind of stuff all the time. You show up somewhere and you play there, and you on your rehearsal space you kind of have probably a different setup that is set up because we're more drummers sharing it, and that makes you explore new stuff that you might didn't explore if you had your same setup all the time. But I mean, it's plus and minus with both ways. If you have the exact same setup for a while as well, you really get to know that. But of course, when for instance me, if I'm often asked why don't I use two kick drums instead of double pedal, and once it's many reasons for that, of course, but I really like to have my hi-hat close to the snare. I think that kind of invites to more groove based playing, rather than having this all the time. Then it's more like but I mean that's also inspiring to go behind a kit sometime that is completely different than. Yeah,
And
so
and for
I'm mm.
and for someone who tours, on a smaller level than you do, it's just a whole hell of a lot easier to bring one bass drum than to lug
Yeah,
those two
yeah.
bass drums. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and it's so much more practical, and yeah. But for me, it's most about the setup for toms, hats, and all that kind of makes just life easier.
So, man, this is the elephant in the room, and I just really can't wait because I started this interview show right at the beginning of the pandemic, and I cannot wait to not have to ever talk about this bullshit again. But might as well get into it. How has and you're in Norway, and you're actually my first foreign guest. How
Ah.
has this affected your career? Like you said, that have you been able to still do more? Like, are recording studios open there? Are you able to do? We've all been doing quarantine jams, and
Oh,
uh,
you're speaking about the COVID
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Corona. Yeah, okay. Mm.
So, like, have you still been able to, get recording in? Are the studios open? Are you able to still do that stuff?
Absolutely. I mean, when this March 2020, when it really hit our face all over, I was on a tour with my other band, Rendezvous Point. We just finished a Leprous tour. That was from February 8th, yeah, 8th of February to March 1st. And then I had a few days home. And then I went on that's rock and roll, on a 3 days, 3 weeks tour in March with Rendezvous Point. And then Switzerland, they had already canceled the show. And we were like, what? They're such a paranoid people. What's going on here? And I, I remember the tour started in the UK and further went over to France, Spain, stuff like that, and Portugal. And for the day after we played each show, the country that we just played in just shut down. So we played in Spain, and the country shut down. And then we were in Portugal, and Portugal didn't shut down yet. They were the slowest country in Europe, I guess, to shut down. So I remember the 10th or 11th of March, we played in Lisbon for like 1,000, 1,500 people. It was a support tour, and we were just thinking, this is not a good thing right now to play for so many people, because there's no way this virus have not reached Portugal. But those days went from we didn't fear it at all to kind of shit, this is gonna have big consequences for us. But to be honest, at that point, I was pretty tired of so much intense touring. So I'm more like a guy when I know that I cannot do anything with it anyway. There's no way I can tell the promoters to do the shows even though there are restrictions. I'm just trying to be positive about it. And okay, I cannot do anything about it, and now I have to be in quarantine for 14 days at home. Nice about that. And then I suddenly got this idea that okay, let's just put on a status on Facebook or on my socials and say that I can do session work. for everybody. And that's kind of been a part of my identity a little bit as a band drummer, that I don't want to play on everybody's record and stuff like that. But I thought, why not? Why not just check what's the interest are like, and of course getting paid for that, and I got so many requests, so that was, yeah, it was kind of a uphill climb for me during the beginning of COVID to know that, okay, I can actually make a living out of just going to the studio and being a studio drummer. Who would ever believe that? I mean, I was always taught that, first and foremost, it's impossible to make a living out of music, and definitely if you play the drums, that's impossible. You know,
Right.
and definitely you will not be able to make a living out of playing in studio. The studio drummer, that's gone for a long while. No one can living out of studio. Everything is in the live, and no one buys the records anymore. So, but now it's kind of been, though the whole industry has kind of, or at least I guess it's because I'm in such a the genre is pretty, I don't know the English word, niche. I don't know.
Niche.
It's very, yeah, niche. Okay. Yeah. So so people are willing to kind of pay solid fees to get my touch on the album, and I'm not willing to still play on everything and for everybody for whatever price. I mean, I'm quality before quantity, and when I get to that mode in the studio, it's been fantastic. I've learned so much during this year going to the studio as a daily thing rather than just one time a year with different bands, you know. So when we also got a chance to discover a lots of different studios in Norway, because with Leprous we normally go to Sweden to record our albums in the same studio. Very happy with that studio. It's the reason why we have recorded drums for the 3 last albums there. And but it's all, I mean, limitations often makes you open up new possibilities, and that goes for drum setup, it goes for life in general, it goes for, yeah, I mean, I haven't traveled outside Norway for 1 year now, but I've had a pretty good time. So
It's
sometimes
something that,
changes are,
well, what I was going to say is like, you're like the third drummer that I've had on here. Well, fourth actually, that were, heavily touring, and then you were forced to shut down. And it's really interesting to watch how everybody has kind of rolled with the punches with this. And it's very interesting that, so did you ever really, before this last year, you weren't really doing like one-off studio dates? You were kind of just in a band and you were doing the stuff for that band.
I did a little bit of studio stuff, and I remember a very, very, very crazy indie kind of band from Russia. They reached out to me at the beginning of March, before COVID was a big thing, and asked me to do a full album. And then I listened to it, and they had used Thomas Pridgen, a Mars Volta drummer, on the previous record, and I listened to that, and I'm just, yeah, and I was, okay, if you want me to fill his shoes somehow, okay, it's at least a challenge. I think I will learn a lot from to go for. So there was a couple of stuff like that here and there, but not that much, because I never ever went out officially to say you can hire me for a session or something like that. So I posted a video. I think it was a Sky's Red video. It's pretty crazy Leprous track in terms of rhythmical stuff, and I posted that video and said, if you ever need a drummer for something, please contact me. And then I got so much requests, and that was just great to see that. Okay, I'm not 100% in a need of traveling 150 days a year to make a living anymore, obviously. So and there's nothing that says that if or slash when the world opens up again and you can tour, that I cannot do studio in between or when it see fit. So it kind of, yeah, it's been it's really just opened up a lot for my life as a drummer somehow.
I was going to say that's really inspiring, because that probably would be something that if you were just on your usual playing with Rendezvous Point, right?
Yeah.
And Leprous, and I know you also do now that DJ thing that I saw. I think it's just cool as hell. Is that something that you play live with?
Yeah, live. That's more or less just a live thing. So we haven't really been very active the last year, unfortunately. But we've done a few small shows, and but yeah, we are we are really affected of that. So there's no doubt I'm really looking forward to the world to open up again. And we have a 20 years anniversary tour with Leprous in December. Yeah, let's cross our fingers and drumsticks.
Yeah, I was going to say, I saw that there are
For
some,
that.
that you do have some dates. I saw that I think you have like a date in June, maybe, and then there's a bunch booked in December.
Mm,
Does that sound about right? But what I was going to
yeah.
say was, that's really inspiring because I know a lot of musicians. I mean, do you know Nashville in America? It's kind of one of the main recording hubs.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
so I know a lot of people down there are like leaving the business and are like,
yeah.
because their life has just been this tour, play live in Nashville, tour live, tour, right? And
Yeah,
then now it's
in that
done.
same yeah, when they play in live in Nashville, we speak about that one street with all the live pubs all
It's
over,
called
right?
Broadway.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Broadway. Yeah, I've seen it. When we were on tour. Yeah, I guess that's
And
terrible.
but I know a lot of musicians are just kind of just like giving up, just like, well, there's no gigs to be had. How many times can you do a live stream? And I like that you were just like, well, you know what? I'm just going to go find another avenue to make my art with, and I'm blown away by how surprised you were that so many people would want you on their record. like, dude, you're one of the best
No,
drummers in the
but
world, and I don't have to lie because you're already on my
no,
show. I'm
definitely.
I'm I'm very blown away by those 3 records, and one of the things I want to get into is the last record, which is Melina. Is that right?
Pitfalls is the last record so far.
Okay, okay.
Pitfalls is from
The
Malina
one
is
from
2017.
2019. Okay, so the one
Yeah,
from
that's
2019.
Pitfalls.
Okay, I am blown away by your ch- like change of attitude behind the drum set because it's so much more. Because man, we've seen you play all of these really complex composition, and I'm going to get through this whole interview without saying the P word once. I promise you, I'm not going to say the P word.
Which P
Prague.
word?
I'm not going to say that word.
Okay,
I'm
yeah,
not going to
okay,
say that word because I think you are
okay,
more than
cool.
that. Because I think you are more than that. And that record
Thank you so
is
much.
very well. First of all, you have one of the best singers in the world. That dude,
Thank you.
man. Please answer me a question. Is he a Jeff Buckley fan by any chance? Do you know that?
Yeah, he's pretty much a Jeff Buckley fan. I mean, I think the bass player is even more a Jeff Buckley fan, but he's definitely a Jeff Buckley.
He is the close because I Jeff Buckley is my recorded my favorite record of all time. I think Grace is the is my favorite record that's ever been put to tape or hard drive. And he's the first cat that I ever heard. I was like, oh shit, this guy is as talented and has it like Jeff Buckley does. And that's a big, gigantic statement. But getting back to the last record for 2019, it's more groove oriented. It's more song oriented. Of course, the sky's burning red, whatever that song, of course,
Yeah,
is ends it with an 11-minute opus. But I am very inspired by drummers who I know have all these chops in the tank, but eschew it and drop their ego and just play more simply. Do you feel that when you went in doing that record, was that a conscious decision?
you're very spot on. I mean, and thanks for giving me some credit for that because I mostly hear the opposite. Oh, why are you so long behind on this record? We want more, like, yeah. But except for Sky's Red though, that probably saved in a little bit of it. But to be honest, when I did Congregation, the album from 2015, we were still on a very budget, so I had 4 days to set the sound and play through all the songs.
You did that
4
record
days.
in 4 days?
4 days. And Malina and Mali, the next record we did in 7 days because we had more budget. And Pitfalls, I think I used 12 days or 13 days. So it's kind of, we double the amount of time I have to set sounds, to find my parts. And of course I prepare before I go to studio as well. But so what is cool at Congregation, that many people say, oh, that's so difficult. That was the record I used the shortest time to record. But Pitfalls, where it's most laid back one, that's the one we used longest time. But it's my interpretation for the last record was that I want every single hit to have a meaning somehow, and I don't want those unnecessarily typical drummer bad habits kind of thing. When this was programmed, it was Einar who did the song sketches, and he said, "Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of electronic elements and a lot of it's going to be acoustic drums for sure, but a lot of electronic elements." But instead of that, because I obviously suck at electronic stuff, we did more like loop-based stuff with acoustic sounds and like an analog clap stack, for instance. So the clap sound that goes through the record is on a couple of songs is actually an analog, and I used a lot of a piccolo snare to play more like instead of programming that way. I'm just let's do the Jojo Mayer reverse engineering, that you play program beats on the drums instead of trying to adapt the normal drums on a computer somehow. Right. So reverse engineering is what I've been a fan of too. And I guess playing a lot with DJ and with kickflip and stuff, playing electronic songs acoustic, that's the kind of transition that I'm totally into. So on the song called By My Throne, for instance, it's a little bit disco oriented on the Leprous.
I actually listen to that.
Even though it's actually a 21/8 time signature or something, but it kind of have this beat going all over. So if it wasn't for all the club playing with DJs, I don't think I would come up with those grooves. But yeah, you're spot on. That record was about just trying to find the perfect grooves for the song, really. So the studio days went more to find out the direction to go rather than which take is the best. It was more like, which direction do we go here with the sound? And sometimes it totally changed my plan in studio for what I already prepared. But of course there's places there also with fills and improvisation and stuff like that. But yeah, it was maybe a more produced record. But the new record that is coming now is a little bit less of that overproduced. I won't say it's overproduced, but it's a little bit more edgy, maybe.
Dude, I think that record's a masterpiece. Like I said, I went and listened to those first three, and it's very interesting now that I know that the first record is just a lot of composition and very dense, and you did it in 4 days. Then the next record,
that was terrible.
Oh goodness!
That's way terrible, too long days. It was like being in a prison. I
was gonna say, so you were just tracking for like 12, 14 hours then, right? You were just getting
that was completely terrible again, because that was also my first record. I didn't have too much. My first record with Leprous, I didn't have too much confidence either, but I prepared as much as I could, and I was so obsessed by giving the very, very best of myself. The very, very best that I've ever done, because this was Leprous' like fourth studio album and my first album, and their previous drummer really had a big impact on their sound. So it was big shoes to fill for sure. He was like not the typical prog drummer. I don't. Right. But he had his edge, and I somehow I needed to take his sound further. But in other way, I'm a completely different drummer, so it was hard to find that balance in sound and character and signature. So, and again, recording so many songs and being 100% happy as well. I was, but I mean, I worked with the best technician I could ever have, David Castillo there. So he kind of had the full overview over all the takes, and oh yeah, but you had that from that take, we can add that there, and it was crazy clipping and lots of stuff from different takes though. Not too much editing, but a lot of like which takes and directions. I mean, lots of improvisation. And
so, are you saying that there's like some comping on that record?
What do you mean?
Like comping, like taking this section from a take and putting it in, and this section from this take and putting it in.
Oh yeah. It's a world championship in Pro Tools crossfades.
Okay. Yeah, we call it comping. We call it comping.
Yeah, definitely.
What I was going to say is that this is something I want to explore. So you toured with them before you recorded with them, yes?
Yes.
Okay, so you knew a good portion of their back catalog before you went in.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's very interesting to me because I've had to do that too. And we've talked about that on the channel because again, it's like a drum education channel. When you join a band that already has a set amount of music that you learn, and then I've talked about this in a few different videos, watching drummers playing not covers, but songs they didn't record, and how they end up putting their stamp on it. How much did you let the drums that happened before you influence that first record? And how do you feel that there was like a connection over the next two records where it was like, okay, this is more me?
That's so good questions. It's very spot on. I mean, to start with, he was more like a kick drum, one tom, one floor tom kind of dude. And the last record, he was more like a kick drum, snare, floor tom. That's it. And like that's so very. But I was a little bit more like a Gavin Harrison-ish setup with more toms and stuff. And I remember when I brought like 8 and 10-inch toms to the rehearsal space with Leprous when I started to play with them. I remember Einar, the singer, said, I don't think we like such small drums in Leprous. It should be big drums all the way. So, but I was like slowly but sure just trying to push that a little bit in because I guess he has some bad references with it. Like when the Leprous guys see 2 kick drums, they only imagine triggered black metal
Right.
festival.
You are from Norway.
But I'm trying to say, hey, the 60s with Mitch Mitchell and Jimi Hendrix, that was also 2 kick drums pitched differently, and it's a lot of stuff you can do. And Terry Bozzio, I mean, so don't let those triggered satanic guys put the definition of what is 2 kick drums and not. So, but back to your question, when I played. When I toured with them before I started, we only played songs that was, of course, from the back catalog, or not the back catalog, but the songs that was released by then in 2013, Cole. So then I, of course, had to stick way more to his approach, and I didn't really have too much good ideas of how to play those drums that was on the album differently live. So I was more sticking to that. And slowly but sure, during the tour, I started to get some more confidence. And I mean, Leprous is a band that is in the rhythm section, needs to be a little bit loose. So if you play like exactly the same as on the record live all the time, you don't get that authentic
the feel
vibe. Yeah, you don't get that feel in the same way. I guess so it needs to be a little bit loose and improvised here and there. Of course, stick to basic parts some places, but that was a long growing thing. And January 2014, when I was starting as a 100% member, we had band practice 2 times a week, rehearsing new songs and ideas, very rough all the time. I remember it took me months before I had confidence in what I played behind there when we were working creatively. And the songs, like, I mean, Einar, he wrote 1 sketch for each band rehearsal, and he programmed some drums. I tend to stick to that a little bit too much. And he was like, hey, we're used to having the drummer that completely just ruins all the demo drums that is over. So please do more of that if you can. And it took some time, but I was getting there. And I mean, 10 months later, we were going to studio and record the album. And it was very, very important for me during that direction to kind of get a broader songs, to get that extra headroom, CPU, as Gavin Harrison say, CPU. To just try from a creative point of view to think differently, not just take the first and best that comes to your mind. Oh, the guitar plays da ga 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 da da da. Let's play do go 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 do do da 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 da. I mean, it's so trying to do it different ways. And when we get to the records later, as you said, then I started to have way more confidence on it. Then it was like, okay, on this record, I'm not even gonna hear the demo drums. I'm just gonna open the Logic project or whatever and mute the demo drum and just jam along to the songs and present ideas to the guys without even hearing the demo drum. That was kind of an approach somewhere. And also on those typical unis, I tried to, instead of playing everything on a double kick, I tried to place it more on a kick and tom and tried new creative ways to kind of back up a riff, if you know what I mean. And yeah, I definitely had way more confidence in for each record. But then Pitfalls came. That was so different, more like not
There's like a lot of
really.
R&B on that record. It feels like
Yeah,
there's a lot of
yeah, yeah,
R&B on that record.
yeah, definitely. And that I was pretty confident doing that kind of stuff, because in the meantime I had played a lot of R&B kind of stuff. And so yeah, the confidence in the band just grows and grows. I mean, but the congregation was a tough one to kind of get to where I got. But I mean, if you have a goal and you just focus 100% on it, you will definitely see some results whenever.
That's something I've
And
talked about.
I hit the wall so many times. So many times it was just like, oh man, how can I even get close to the quality of the drumming that has been on these records? Yeah.
Well, that's something I've talked about before. Is another part of that maybe you probably think too, is you have to, when you come into a situation and you are, collaring in the lines of something that someone else has done before you, you have to like kind of earn the trust of the band to let them put yourself in it, and that takes a little while. Like the last
Yeah.
band that I was in that was kind of regionally touring, I came in and they already had like 2 records worth of stuff, and I really consciously stuck to that record. And then every now and again, I'd be like, "But this is how I would do it," and then this is how I would do it, and then more and more it became this is how I would do it all the time. But
Yeah.
when you play, and and of course, I'm sure they've talked about this. When you get into a situation like that, that band has been listening to that song played that way so long that it can be uncomfortable when something new pops up. And you get that side eye
Yeah.
from the bass player, like, hey, wait a minute. That's not how that part's gone the last 6 years that we've done this song or whatever. So it's like you
Yeah.
have to like earn their trust to be like, trust me. I'm
Yes. And then you just need to dare to do mistakes, or you need to dare to hit the floor. And I mean, not necessarily in a live setting, but at least just try to feel where do you have arm space in this group or band. What can you do? And that's the way. I mean, a lot of ideas I have presented to the guys from a drumming creative point of view. Lot of them I've been like 20% sure that they will gonna like it or not, but I still present it. And sometimes I think, oh, that was actually pretty awesome. And then it's like, yeah, okay, cool. So you wouldn't. So you need to take those chances. And if you don't, if you're afraid of having the band members thinking that you have bad taste or something, then you need to grow more together as a group. I mean, everybody can try.
That's that kind.
To be able to.
Well, that's that stuff that happens when you're on the road. That stuff in between the gigs where you're all listening to the same music in the for me in a van, for you I'm probably guessing a tour bus. Then you as a band, like, oh shit, we're all loving this Paul Simon record, so we're all going to assimilate this thing because we're listening to it at the same time, and that's how like
I don't think there's. Yeah. I don't think there's one record in the world that the whole band likes, actually.
Oh, really?
Or,
so, like,
I mean,
let's talk about that, because again, we talk about being in a band, and so much of YouTube, drum YouTube, as I call it, is about drums, drummy, drum, play drums, drum, and a lot of people just don't talk about like the art of being in a band, and that's just as much of a skill as your double stroke roll and your 6-stroke roll. Let's talk about that. So like, what are the influences of the other musicians in your band, and like what would yours be, and then how does that Venn diagram happen?
I mean, not on tour. The former members of the band, and like the original members, they started to play their instruments when the band started, and they were black metal kids, Emperor and Ishan, Norwegian black metal stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I guess I don't know their history 100%, but they also through the years Mars Volta, Radiohead, Massive Attack.
There's a lot of Radiohead in that new record, man. I feel there's a lot of Radiohead influence on that last record, on the 20.
Absolutely, and also for the earliest records it was like Opeth and Tool for sure. That's for them. but I come more from like Iron Maiden, Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree. Yeah, all of the guys kind of like Porcupine Tree though.
Spock's beard.
That kind of. I haven't been too much into that to be honest, but also I mean Liquid Tension Experiment, the instrumental group of Dream Theater. Also Frank Zappa, like Vini Colaiuta, Teribosio in.
I am a Zappa freak. Dude, I am a full-on Zappa freak. A full-on Zappa freak.
So,
well, who's your favorite Zappa drummer? Who's your favorite Zappa drummer?
I think it's Teribosio when he sits there in his underwear in the 70s.
Yeah.
but you don't mess with Vinny either. But also, I mean, Morgan Ågren, a friend of mine, Morgan, he played with Zappa straight before Zappa died.
Wait, the Morgan Kolstad, what's his name?
Not Morgan Ågren.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to try to say that. I know that guy. I've heard of that guy. When did he get to play with Frank?
1990. 89 or something. I think there's even been a documentary about this young kid from Sweden being able to play with Zappa, and he played for something called Zappa's Universe as well. Zappa's Universe, that was like a pretty you can check it out on YouTube, the Black Page in a very rock and roll version, kind of Black Page Part 2.
I just found out there was another Zappa drummer I didn't know, because I'm a fanatic. I'm a pretty fanatic Zappa fan. And I didn't know about that guy. That's a drummer that I didn't know. I could probably pretty much name them all, but that's one I didn't know. And it's Zappa's Universe is the record.
Yeah, no, I mean, I might be wrong, but there's at least a YouTube clip called Zappa's Universe or something, where there are Morgan is playing with, not with Zappa, but he's playing with.
Is he playing with Dweezil?
No, he didn't do that either. I mean, I guess because Dweezil is all the way in the US and Morgan is in Sweden, but yeah, he would do great playing with Dweezil, I guess.
But man, I think the drummer that doesn't get enough love with him is the guy that was with him for the last 8 years, as you know, Chad Whackerman. And the thing about Chad is he had to, excuse me, he had to play all the Vinny tracks, all the Terry Ted Bozzio. You know, you always called him Terry Ted on stage. Terry Ted Bozzio. Yeah. He had to play all the Bozzio tracks, all the Chester tracks. This dude had to distill all of the great, you know, all these amazing drummers, and he was the guy that had to do all of that towards the end.
Yeah. I mean, I met Chad in LA 2012 when I attended the V-Drums World Championship, because he was one of the judges, and I was so starstruck that a Zappa drummer was gonna. But to be honest, I haven't listened too much to you know, I'm too young. I'm from the YouTube and Spotify generation. You know, we don't have patience enough to listen to a full record. That's a shame. But,
dude, I bitch at my students about that all the time, dude. I bitch at my students. Like, they'll come in and they'll have like a track, and they love this track. And I'm a little older. I'm 44. And I have, you know, they'll have this track, and they just talk about this band. This track is amazing. Just like, well, dude, you know, what else have you listened to on that record? And I'm like, nothing. Like, dude, like a perfect example. A kid came in and he had become obsessed with Paradise City by Guns N' Roses, right? And he wanted to learn that. And we learned that. And I was like, dude, you know, this, I was like, this is one of the greatest rock and roll records that's ever been recorded. And he's like, I don't know any of them. I'm like, listen to the whole record.
I'm ashamed.
I get to the whole record.
But Joe's Garage, Vini Colaiuta there, what a drum sound, Joe's Garage album. And other than that, it's been all the different live versions of Black Page.
Have you learned it? Have you learned it?
There's a video of me playing that on YouTube, actually, as the first song on my bachelor degree exam on the music college. Then I play with a full band with melodic percussion and everything. Black Page Part 2.
Yes, I was going to say. So, man, let's talk about that. I guess you all probably call it university. We call it college. Yeah. So that's something else we talk about a lot. And I did a whole podcast with three of my other buddies that's in the business. And the podcast was called So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. And we talked about, you know, answering the questions that, you know, people who are in the business get, like, how do I get into the business? And is music school a necessity? Does it improve your chances of becoming successful? Tell us about what music school did for your playing. Had you already like gigged and played a bunch before you went into university? Like, tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I played in a bunch of bands and stuff during high school, and I also went to a music high school with music lessons, and I had drum lesson with a very good drummer that went to Berkeley College of Music. Learning some technique and stuff like that in a proper way, and getting into different genres, stuff like that. And I played in metal bands, stuff like that. And then
Have you ever wore corpse paint?
yes, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the thing about America is we fetish that scene. It's the movies, it's the stories that we're not going to get into. As metal fans in America, we feel that those, we call them Scandinavian metal bands over here, that they just mean it a little bit more than over here. Like
I didn't really mean it a lot, but as soon as I started to become a professional musician and I had this metal background, and Norway, it's so many black metal bands and so many bands in need of a step-in drummer or a full-time drummer. So I was playing in way too many black metal bands without really having any black metal background. I mean, I really loved a couple of albums from Dimmu Borgir, and because of their symphonic stuff, epic stuff. I'm also a power metal dude from behind, so I like those guilty pleasure.
I love that stuff. I love keyboards and overwrought
Yes.
power metal stuff. I love that shit. I'm so down for it.
Yeah, and but music education for me, it was very important to just get into that environment of different musicians with ambitions and being in that environment of people that is good to play drums. It wouldn't be the same if I just went home with my parents and practice at home and had a band practice 1 or 2 times a week. I mean, to just be in there and studying music full time environment made a total difference for me. And I also learned a grip that a lot of haters on YouTube comments.
In my video from you, I said you people are going to bitch about his technique and shut up, because as a drum teacher, I think that there's far too much onus on technique. I only think there's 2 kinds of techniques: good and damaging. Like, to make sure that you're not playing a technique that can hurt you, because drums is a physical instrument and you can hurt yourself. We know that we know that carpal tunnel is a thing that we get, and tendonitis is a thing that we can get. So with the technique stuff, and in your video, and I do it too, because I've been called out on it, I'll sometimes fly my pinky out, right? And you're playing that halftime shuffle and your pinky flies out a bit. And when I demonstrate your shuffle, my pinky flies out. And my point is, don't get so caught up in that, because I know what you're going to say, because it's you can only hurt yourself. The only thing that's bad technique is technique that can hurt you.
I don't completely agree now, but I would agree before, because to be honest, I started in a marching band and technique has never really been an issue for me. I've always had a very nice hand, wrist, and that's never like been an issue. Any teachers have commented for me, but I had a teacher on high school, great technique on him, and he reminded me, put your pinky in, even though you play start, you should take the and I worked with that, and and I had this pretty locked and controlled grip using both all the fingers to help, and also change, so you can change the muscles from here to and more like a hand wrist kind of thing. And then I came to the music college, and then we had this legendary drum teacher called Bruce Rasmussen. He went to Berkeley College, and he has this rumor in Norway. He has been teaching drummers for 30 years. He has this rumor that you have to learn this secret grip, and I'm like, what? Secret grip? or what is or not really a secret grip, but I heard from former students, you're going to change your grip. And I said, hey, but my grip is perfect. Not to be cocky or anything, but my grip is the last thing I want to change. it's the hand wrist and my fingers is all in place. And yeah, but you're gonna switch from this position, like the main finger and the thumb,
to back
main
here.
finger to the thumb, yeah, to back here, and you're gonna play like that. And it kind of made sense for me pretty early, because I remember we had a drum lesson pretty early where we played, and I used this grip that everybody says everybody should have, all the fingers attached to the stick all the time. And I played, and that was, of course, with a lot of pressure here, though, main finger and thumb. And then we did some fatbacks, Gary Chaffee fatbacks, boom, 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 like he played on a cowbell or something, patterns that I was supposed to repeat, but still having that pocket all the time. And then he said, like, okay, it's pretty decent. I guess you can play like that for 50 seconds, and then your arm will start to hurt because you don't get all that basketball bounce as you should have. The gravity, gravity, you want the stick to fly like this, and then you need an open grip, and he has a video on YouTube that I really want to text to English, where he kind of speaks about how little power he uses and how much sound he gets out of the drum. So this grip is first and foremost a sound. From a sound point of view, this grip is very important. From a sound, but also a motion, because we're using maximum of the bounce I get. And right now, I'm not using any power. Oh, I don't know if the sound is getting terrible.
Yeah, we can hear it. You can hear it.
Yeah. Okay. The thing is, I'm not using any power, but I still get at least as much sound as a super strong heavy metal drummer playing like this. But no one kind of says that, yeah, you should play with all your arms. But the thing is, it's all about being aware of the sound in the stick. So you can hear the difference here on the table. If I have all the stick, all the fingers attached, you can hear. And if I open more up, it's more more open sound. So it's about the sound, really.
That's the technique that I use. Well, I went through the same thing. I was going to ask that because I didn't know, because honestly, man, I don't know that much about Norway. I wondered if you all had a marching band culture over there, because marching band, of course, is very big in America.
We're not as cool as you guys, for sure. It's more like school brass bands, kind of stuff. But we have a lot of incredible jazz drummers and musicians, and a jazz scene.
Hold that thought, because I want to ask that too. But that technique, it's a technique that I use. I don't fly my finger as much off here, but the bounce part, when I'm teaching it, and it's something that I had to fix, because I came from being like an all-state, it's like all region, whatever, marching band drummer, which is a much more regimented military type technique. And when I went into jazz band for the first time, and I started swinging, it was ding ding da ding ding da ding ding, and the squareness of that swing was coming because my technique was too tight, right? And the thing that you were talking about with man, dude, you have a lot of the same ideas that I do. One of the reasons I think that what I call it the bounce stroke, Dom Famulero calls it the free stroke, that the bounce stroke is when you're not bouncing, the stick is staying on the head that much more than when you bounce. When it bounces, it's hitting and it's moving, and you're able to get a more resonant sound out of the instrument by that.
Same with the kick drum. A lot of people, including myself, that especially when we're playing heel up, we're kind of, if this is the bass drum head and this is the beater, we're playing into the head. And with some kind of kick drums, that sounds terrible, especially kick drums without a hole in an 18-inch kick drum. So you need to play out of the head. It's a little bit like try to play on a floor tom and play like this. It doesn't sound good, But of course, the consequence is not the same on such a big kick drum with a hole in there. But it's about trying to get. You should be aware of what kind of sound you're producing, and that was what that professor told me. Be aware of what kind of sound you're producing, and to go back to that story where I played with the fatbacks. 3 months later, after learning like very slowly, like
almost like a molar.
yeah, definitely. And like it took me so long to like. It's also a little bit of a Bill Bruford method with downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. But then I play more, and it says like, oh, it sounds so much more organic. It sounds like a human is playing, and you can play that for 10 minutes instead of just 1 minute.
And it
like
affects
as you said,
go ahead.
yeah. No, as he said on the earlier lesson months before when I used my grip, was that it best case scenario sounds like a programmed hi-hat. Best case scenario, but when you get that natural bounce, you get that dynamic. So, but I mean, of course, it's not about the pinky being inside or not. I mean, that's not really a. But it's the main idea is to kind of let the stick sing, and then the muscles you need or the movement you need to learn is holding it like this.
You need to do that video. You need to do that video that you were talking about, because I think that outside of, there's a lot of marching band technique stuff. There's very little like good technique stuff on YouTube. I think that would be something very valuable to add to the thing, because that technique is kind of, it's newish here. It's newish.
Yeah.
It's not, what I was going to say also with that bounce stroke or free stroke or whatever you want to call that, it also affects your swing because you're not as tight, because you're allowing the bounce to make that swing happen. And that brings us to, and again, because I don't know that much about Norway universities, in America, if you're in music school, no matter even if you are on, we kind of have two tracks, TRACTS here, where you're either on the jazz tract or the classical tract. No matter which one of those you're trying to be, we have what's called the 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock jazz band. And that's where like the best players, if you get into 1 o'clock, and that's every college in America. Like if that's the, like if you, dude, are you in the 1 o'clock ensemble? Because they also, every college in America, the 1 o'clock is the best jazz players in that school. Do they have that there? Is like jazz a big part of the education there?
Definitely. It's in Norway. It's kind of divided into classical or jazz. But where I went, it's called classical or rhythmical music, as a more rhythmical music is what they call it, and that includes kind of jazz, pop, funk, R&B, rock,
stuff you can get gigs with.
Definitely. And that's what we call. That's in Norway we are really spoiled. We get a lot of governmental funding, and you can apply for funding and scholarship kind of stuff. And we say that the guys that goes to these jazz academies, they go to a school where they afterwards need to. They're 100% addicted to being skilled to write, to apply for scholarship. But we kind of get the gigs. We are the ones playing on The Voice, Idol, X Factor, all those TV stuff. Yeah. Not that I have gone that direction though, but. Just before I forget about that grip, last thing is that Bruce Rasmussen, my teacher, he studied that that grip is a method that is a mix between him, Freddie Gruber, and Joe Morello. Joe Morello, Freddie Gruber. So it's not really 100% unfamiliar thing in the US, but I guess they it's kind of an opposite aesthetic than all your amazing gospel drummers that hold their sticks almost like this.
I don't know how they do it, man. I don't know. I call it
incredible players. But
I call it strong style. I call it strong style, where it's they're coming up, they're going down, and they're picking it up, and it's so I feel like it's very strength oriented. It's that they've actually trademarked that. You can't say gospel chops.
As well.
It's crazy. Where I'm from, I actually went to an HBCU, which is called a historical black college or university. So I was surrounded by those guys. I was like the one white dude in the middle of all of these gospel chops guys. And there's still techniques that they do that I still can't cop, because it's like, that style of playing starts in churches, obviously.
Yeah,
and they start at like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? Little, and they use
yeah.
that technique and those and all of that. It's Thomas Pridgeon. He's the I think he is the epitome of that whole style for me.
Isn't it Calvin Rogers? Oh, for you, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
thought
well,
Calvin
like
Rogers was that.
did you ever
Yeah,
go down the gospelchops.com like wormhole back in the day? I don't know if that made it there.
not really, more like a YouTube guy. I'm really inspired by some of those guys, like Aaron Spears, big
Yeah,
inspiration for me.
yeah.
Same with Calvin Rogers, Chris Dave. Chris Dave is not really
Daddy.
a gospel.
Nah, he's
Yeah,
more like I
Daddy
always
Dave.
think of him as like I call him like a downtown New York guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whatever. Yeah, he's just a god, you know.
He is. He's
That's the
ridiculous.
thing. Yeah, yeah. He's a god.
And that what
No, no, but
and I felt like because of that last record, and I think that last record is probably my favorite of the three. And it's crazy because you're playing so much less on it, but it connects. It just hits so much harder. It feels like you're kind of using those people that you just talked about as influences from that record.
yeah, or yeah. It's hard to say, but I mean, I've been a big fan of a British pop rock band the last days called Nothing But Thieves, and it's
Nothing but
just so
thieves.
catch. Yeah, they're pretty huge actually, UK band, but it's more in a pop rock kind of kind of world. But obviously, like Deftones, Radiohead inspired band as well. But it's just so catchy hooks on the drums, kind of simple but catchy. So that's kind of what I remember we used quite a lot of time on, for instance, a song on the Pitfalls called At the Bottom, where the drums go boom, doko, gako, boom, doko, daka, just trying to create some kind of super catchy hooks somehow on the drums.
I mean,
That was at least the intention.
it's
Yeah,
obviously he never played like that, but I mean that's what Ringo Starr did best was playing hooks on the drums. Like,
yeah, yeah.
him and Dave Grohl, I think were kind of the masters of like simple hooks. Like you could take the music away, and if you hear like Ticket to Ride, you hear doom gaga doom dum ba doom gaga doom ba boom. You could
Yeah,
not hear the bass and guitar like, oh, that's Ticket to Ride. You could
definitely.
if you could go anywhere in the world and sound check with doom to ba doom ta takum takum taka doom taka boom, and everybody would know you're playing In Bloom by Nirvana. People forget that drums can be hooks and drums can be
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
melodic.
Absolutely, and that's been more and more kind of method I've tried to incorporate them.
Let's talk
So
about, and I love this. I don't know if you all call it this in America. We call it busking, but playing on the street. Like, were
oh
you
yeah,
doing that in college or in university? Where was that in your timeline?
I started with that summer when I was 14, 15 years old, playing on just painting cans and buckets
Bucket
with a friend
drummers.
of
That's a
mine that
big thing
played
over here.
saxophone.
That's a big thing over here. Is
Yeah,
bucket drummers.
and that was really, I mean, this was in 2006. YouTube was just starting, and there was this clip going around with that American guy sitting there and with huge arms and playing on the buckets. And that video made us being inspired when we were in a cottage in Norway to go out and do that. But I really didn't want to play buckets when I was a drummer, so I tried some day to bring my drum kit or to bring my drum kit on the street with my father that was driving me there and kind of supporting me, and just to see if that had the same impact or if people didn't look at that as such a unique thing as the buckets. But the drum kits was like even more eye and air catcher for people on the streets, and it kind of, yeah, it has been a huge part of my life for sure, playing on the streets every summer, 8-9 years. That's kind of been my only job. I have never ever had a job, and if it wasn't for me playing on the streets, I wouldn't be able to buy expensive apartments in Oslo. It's so my first apartment, in Norway, it's a big thing, like get into and buy your own flat. That's kind of I think we are the country in the world that highest percent of us actually own our own thing, but it's extremely difficult, more and more difficult to get into that market because the prices are just getting higher and higher and higher. So
And you live in the biggest city in Norway, right?
Yeah, the most expensive city in Norway. So sometimes I remind myself that at least my first flat was paid by coins, just $1 and $2 coins that I got in these buckets, like lots of. So for me, playing gigs and getting paid for actual gigs was actually, from an economical point of view, a little bummer, in the beginning, because I earned way more just going out on the streets playing rather than having
you
a real
took a
gigs.
pay cut to go play at a gig.
Yeah, so sometimes I even turned down offers. Like, no, it's a Saturday, I need to. So, sorry, it's not enough. But probably because I'm also from Norway, where we kind of, I don't know, it's something called janteloven, that you're not supposed to think you are anything more than just minimum somehow. That you're not supposed to step out of the.
You'd make a good Southern American. We call it humble. The big one is being humility.
It's I mean, the stereotypic Norwegian
What's the word that we're supposed
janteloven. It's more like don't stick out. It's the completely opposite of the American way, which is stick out. But
not in the South. You're in the wrong place in America. That is most of it.
Okay.
But down south, it's not as much like that. It's very much, it's like, and you know what? That's a perfect word for drummers. Cause like, I just did a TED talk for my capital city. And I said, look, unless you're John Bonham or Stuart Copeland, nobody knows who the drummer is. So I'm going to introduce myself. And that word, I think, really fits the perfect psyche of what a drummer should be. You know what I mean? Like, if we're doing our job correctly, we're making this thing better, and you're paying more attention to what's going on front of the stage. That's a good word for that.
Yeah. And I mean, for some, when I played on the streets and kind of played on the streets from day to day, it also started to be that YouTube phenomenon, people posting videos of it. And I kind of thought it was so exciting all the time to go out there and just play drum solos 6 hours a day, and get a lot of complaints by restaurants and clothing stores and the local alcoholics sitting on the corner and calling the police because it was so noisy.
Have you had the cops come? Have you had police come to your?
Yeah, many times. And but
outlaw drummer.
Norwegian police are very kind. It's the best police in the world. So they're very kind, and they probably thought it was as stupid as both myself and my father thought as well, that they was called by these local dudes. But and the thing is, it was a long time there wasn't really any rules for making noise in a public. It was like, the police says, you need to speak with the city officer, or like the city government, and the city government kind of said, no, you need to speak with community, and the community, no, you have to speak with the police, and the police say, you have to, no, you're, as long as you're not using an amplifier, you're allowed to be a street musician. Okay, but they never had anyone being as stupid as me coming with a full acoustic drum kit, and they probably didn't know that makes way more sound than a guitar player with a little amp. So it's strange how long that was even possible for me to do without getting in serious trouble.
I love
making so much noise.
I love that you were taking a pay cut to go actually play like a traditional gig in a bar from.
Yeah, but I mean, as I said, we kind of learn. For some reason, I thought that there was like a maximum of what's even being possible to get paid to do a gig. I didn't understand that. Okay, when people actually want to have just you playing a drum solo because you are so special, when they think that, when they see a 15-year-old drummer that looks like he's 10 years old and playing drums on the street, because I always looked way younger than what I was, and that was a big advantage for me, I guess. Sometimes people didn't even believe my age when I said, I'm 16. No, you're maximum 11. Okay, you probably know better. Let's say 12 then. I'm just like
we'll leave this 11-year-old alone.
Yeah, and sometimes I even lied on my age because I didn't want to argue. And okay, if that gives me more money or whatever. But for some reason, the reason I turned down so many gigs was that I probably didn't dare to ask for as much as I probably could, because for some reason I was it was implanted that it's a maximum level of what you can get. And yeah, for some reason we started to speak a lot about money now. But I mean, busking was, of course, that was the best business idea I have ever done.
Well, I mean, like in
Busking.
New York City, that's a real you know, not now obviously, but hopefully again one day. That's a culture. You know, we call it busking.
Yeah, yeah,
You know, that busking
yeah,
culture, there are people, that's how they make their living. You know what I mean? Like that's a
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
Did you
And I
ever
remember that from, yeah.
Oh, go ahead,
That's
go
true.
ahead.
No, I remember that from LA and San Diego as well. And if you even take a picture of the buskers or the street arts, they're like, "Hey, pay me, pay me." In Norway, it's not like that at all. And I never did that either. I just played, and if they were watching and filming for an hour and not even paying, some of them, I didn't really care.
That's very un-American.
So yeah.
I think I'm
Yeah.
going to want to move
But
to Norway after this interview.
but I guess it's a big thing in even London and like all over Europe, actually, in the bigger cities. But yeah, of course, in the US, you have absolutely, yeah, there's not really any free healthcare or anything like that. So I guess you have to do what you can do. So
This is true.
to
Did you
make a living.
feel when you were doing that, did you ever get to the point where you had like regulars, like regular people would come see you kind of on a semi
Oh
regular?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it came to a point after a few years where I was forced by my friend to make a Facebook page to my artist page, and that's also very non-Norwegian to make at least 10 years ago, to make a fan page for yourself. That was like stepping way out of your comfort zone. But he said you need to do that because you have so many random people from YouTube that has added you, because random people have posted video of you playing drums on the street on YouTube, and people find your name and they add you on their personal Facebook. You need to. So I had a very, very good friend of mine that kind of forced me to make that this Facebook page kind of thing, and then I started to announce that I will play on the street because people asked me to. They really so yeah, was a lot of people say same faces every time. So it's so strange to think about that now, because it's such a long time ago.
That's such a cool story. That's very punk rock. It's very do it yourself punk rock, you know,
Punk,
like
yeah.
it is like I'm just going to do this. It's one of the reasons why, you know, the internet has kind of democratized everything. Like you're not
Yeah.
going to worry about having to convince a bar owner to let you play or convince a band to play. Like screw it, I'm just going to go do it myself and take my art straight to the people. Like that's a fucking
Yeah.
really cool story. Here's what you should do when the world
Thanks.
opens up. And I know a little bit about this YouTube game. You should do a Board Goes Back to the Streets video and unannounce it. Just go take your, you know, your 18,
Yeah.
10, 14 jazz kit and go play out on the streets and see if like, and see how many people like notice who you
It's
are.
gonna be way less people. Way less people.
I
I
don't
don't think.
know. I don't know about that. But I think that would be like a great,
But I
that would
was
be a
so
good
lucky because
video.
the golden age for me playing the busking was straight before everybody stopped using cash. You know, no one is using cash today in
Oh
Scandinavia.
yeah.
Absolutely no one.
You'd
So it
have to
was just a
you'd have to
goal.
be able to take credit cards. You'd have to have a credit
Yeah.
card machine in
Oh,
front.
crazy, crazy.
Man,
But
that's a really cool story. Go ahead.
yeah, no. Nothing really more to add. It's always fun to tell these stories again, because I start to remember stuff that I kind of forgot. But again, it was pretty. To be honest, I'm pretty lucky. I don't need to play 6 hours every day
Right,
show,
right.
because you repeat yourself a lot, and sometimes it's just like, fuck, what am I doing?
The chops and endurance gets
Whoa,
worked on
whoa.
though.
Yeah, but the people want to see that the stick throw in the end,
Oh yeah,
the
they want
easiest part of the
to.
whole performance. That's what
You
they want to
better
see, and
bounce a stick off the floor, Tom, and catch it.
yeah.
Two more things, and I'm going to let you go. One was, you know, you mentioned that your dad was the one that was like taking you to this gig because you were like, you know, I don't know what the driving age is there, but I know you don't drive when you're 12. That's
Yeah.
interesting. You know, so many, we talk a lot about on the channel about trying to make music your career, and let's be honest, man, there's not a lot of parents out there that are happy when their son tells them or daughter, hey, I want to try to make art, because we're artists, my
Yeah.
living. And did you have, and I was very lucky because I've got 100% support from my parents because I had an uncle that was in the business. And so
Okay.
it wasn't alien to them. Like my dad's like, oh yeah, my brother plays music and makes a living, so you possibly could. Did you have any
Yeah.
musicians in your family? And did you feel that, like, your family was just like all in support of you doing this?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And not really from a musician family, but my bigger sister played horn in the local school brass band, and my father was like the parent organizer at that time. So I had access to watch these drummers, and I thought it looked so amazing with all those different pedals, and oh, what are these doing? And then so I when I got a little bit older, I also started in that local school brass band, and then I just went on from there. I just really loved it, and full support from my family. I kind of grew up with a pretty tight economic situation in the family, very tight. So I was the last drummer of all the drummers in that school brass band that somehow got a drum kit. And when I got a drum kit, that was for my own savings money when I was 13 years old, 12, 13. Yeah. So yeah, full supportive. And but I guess in Norway in general, we are of course there are parents that, oh no, should you start to take music seriously, and you think you can make a living out of that? No, you should have another education. I mean, of course you have parents like that, but I guess it's a little bit more open-minded in Norway than in the States, because we have free education, and it's more scholarship. It's I guess it's yeah, we're pretty spoiled actually in Scandinavia with such a high amount of freedom in general, freedom to do whatever we want. But of course, there are parents that don't understand anything about growling vocals, but not even
Right.
I understand that yet. But and I understand them. But yeah, I'm very happy. I remember a couple of times there was teachers, a few teachers, and here and there that said, "Yeah, but you cannot make a living out of drumming." And other parents of my friends and exes, whatever, said that, "What are you gonna do with it? Are you gonna make a living out of it? This is not a safe income at all, or what?" So, and then when I told that to my father, especially when teachers said that, no, even even big band artists, they cannot live out of playing music. Yeah. And then my father just said, what kind of in Norwegian, what kind of dream thieves are they? Dream
Dream
thieves, like
thieves. That's a great
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
great term. Oh wow.
Dream thieves, yeah, yeah. Directly translated from to Norway English. So he was like, so my tips from my parents was like, don't listen to anybody else. And even from a drum teacher, he said, my best tips for you is to not take any tips to your consideration. Just do your own thing somehow. When people, I've always heard that, don't practice chops, only practice groove. Don't chops, don't do all else advanced stuff. You need to practice chops. That's what's gonna fill your refrigerator. And without even mention name, I remember there was a professional drummer that very famous American drummer that also say that chops is not what paying bills. Oh well, it's what pay my bills. But
You should put that in the. You should
and,
put that in his comment section.
and yeah, almost all studio stuff I do is like crazy time signatures and stuff that they want me to kind of clear up and somehow make easier. But still, it's if I didn't practice all these crazy chops and time signatures and all this unorthodox stuff, I wouldn't have those. So that has been my thing, and it's also a part of my vocabulary. So even though I played very straight, and of course I worked a lot on that, especially in the later years, getting more and more respect of just playing. Yeah, uh, but don't let anybody else set your rules somehow, because we're all human beings, artists somehow, and be careful to listen too much to all advices. So that's probably my best advice I can give to other inspiring drummers. I often get that question. What's your tips to other younger drummers that wants to like? Okay, yeah, don't be too fanatic about the tips you hear from everybody all the time. Be a little bit critical also. Yeah.
I like that. I like that a
So
lot. I've actually said very similar
if you're
to students when they ask, like, how do you get gigs? Like, man, it depends. Like, what are you wanting to do? What do you want to do? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
if you're going to just be a groove guy, you're going to get those gigs. If you're going to be a chops guy, you're going to get those gigs. And then, the groove guys probably aren't going to get the chops guy. So it's about what you want to do yourself. I'm very adamant when I teach my students that I go out of my way. I tell them I'm not making a Steve clone. I'm not giving you what I do. I'm just going to try to help you get the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do. Because inevitably, I've got a student right now who's in LA playing on hip hop records. And dude, I'm so proud of him. He's working with some like big stuff, like big artists out there now. And, I had him playing, he learned how to play, what's that Dream Theater song? The one that ever
Dance of Eternity.
Yeah, so he learned how to do that. You know what I mean? But he was a hip hop head, right? So, so we were always playing along with Questlove and with the Roots and shit. But my whole point was I wasn't trying to force upon him my style. I was just trying to give him the ability, the technical, mechanical stuff, to then do whatever you want to. So, I mean, that's kind of like adding on to what you just said. My favorite poet, who's a guy named Charles Bukowski, and he said, absolutes are always the most hilarious. So when someone
absolute are always the most
hilarious, like, right?
Yeah.
So like, only do chops. That's the only way you're going to get a gig, or only do, grooving. Or if you're a Star Wars fan, only a Sith deals in absolutes. You know what I mean? Only the bad guy deals in absolutes. That's some of the best advice that's been on my channel. I appreciate that. Let's do one more thing and I'm going to let you go because I know it's later over there. I think you're 6 hours ahead of us. What is, we have a new record coming out and talk a little bit about the new thing. Is it recorded or?
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
Are you allowed to talk about it
now? I'm not if it was direct TV now, not, but I guess I can give a little exclusive
You've heard it here first.
Pre-inside information about it, but I guess something has been catched up on social media anyway. But yeah, it's already done, recorded. It's being mastered. I'm gonna hear the master actually for the first time afterwards. So
today?
Of it. Yeah. I've already heard the mixes, of course, and giving feedbacks there. But
have you told them to turn the snare drum up yet?
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times.
Of course.
Absolutely.
So that's going to be released in December?
Hopefully before.
Okay, and in December will be the 20th anniversary tour that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to come to the States?
We hope so. I mean, we were supposed to go on a tour in the States September 2020, and we were supposed to do that September 2021 as well, but that's not going to happen. So yeah, we hope so. But
if you make it to the States
with the vaccine, so
if you make it to the States, I'll be there. You're going to see my bald head at your show.
Which city will that be?
No. The closest to me would probably be that you would come. I live in like one of the smallest states in America, so you definitely wouldn't be coming to my state. I would probably end up seeing you in Nashville, maybe if you Nashville or Columbus or Philadelphia would be where I would come see you all.
We played all those places, so
okay. So
that's gonna be great.
I look forward to it.
Can't wait to meet people again.
Oh, dude, we did a live stream. My band did a live stream about 6-7 weeks ago, and it, they kind of lined up all the bands in our region to do this live stream, and it was so weird because I saw one of my best friends who's a drummer, like one of my bestest friends, and I was just like, "Can I hug you, man?" Like it felt so good to just like hug another human being that wasn't your girlfriend. You know what I mean? I very miss seeing people. That's something that I think this pandemic has reminded people how much artists mean to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I've seen a lot of social media posts just like, this record has got me through this, or this movie has gotten me through this. I really hope that when it does open up, and where I'm at, we're opening. My metal. I'm in a metal band, like a stoner metal band, and we actually have a gig April 3rd. So we're playing like the first
Oh,
gig in my area that's like wide open. So we're going to see.
yeah. There's no meter distance rule or anything.
Not real. I mean, there technically will be, but we
Yeah.
all know what's going to happen in a bar with people drinking. You think that,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You think
Yeah.
people's going to worry about 6 feet when they've had 5 shots
Oh,
that night? So it's slowly
yeah.
getting there. I'm very excited to play gigs again. Man, I can't get you off here. Something that I noticed was like how much I needed to play music for like mental health purposes. You know what I mean? To like get to
Yeah.
make my art and not just practice in my living room. You know what I mean? And like get out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. To be honest, during the COVID situation, I started to. I've never been a big like drinker or party dude at all, actually. But suddenly I just realized, okay, I have time now for friends and social hangs, and I'm a very social dude. And this was in the beginning of the Corona pandemic, but like during the periods where it was not so strict lockdown. So I suddenly had the opportunity to be home Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, and and I after weeks of like drinking and partying with friends like almost every day for weeks, I just felt that shit. Okay, this is gonna be dangerous.
Yeah.
That studios, yeah, those live stream concerts with Leprous and those studio sessions, I really appreciate to get away and starting to do that. Even though it's sometimes very heavy to start that creative process after you've been drinking for 1 month. But
Man, I tell you what, when my
but
band
yeah,
started to rehearse again for that record, or for that record, although we are getting ready to record a record, but for that gig, we hadn't practiced because we weren't allowed. We weren't allowed to, have that many people around or what have you. And
uh,
like, I know I had been practicing a lot. My chops were good, but man, was something that was gone was endurance. And that, man, that endurance just
ah,
kind of is hard to get. Like, I think endurance comes from just gigging all the time. You know what I mean? You can practice for two
yeah,
hours, but it's not the
yeah,
same. It's not the same. Like,
mm,
practicing is different. Practicing for 2 hours is different than performing for like 90 minutes. And that endurance was an
absolutely.
issue. I was like, oh no, I got to get on the bike again. I got to start.
Yeah,
I got to get my wind back. Well, man, Baard, I'm so sorry if I butchered your name, but I've had so much fun today. I very much appreciate and
right
am
back at
honored
you.
that you would come on. Would you like
Only to be
to?
asked. I mean,
Man, dude, I'm a big fan. I One of the things I love about my channel is I'm getting to learn about new drummers that I didn't know about, and you're definitely one of them. And from listening to Illuminate and listening to the fastest halftime shuffle I ever heard, and getting into more of your stuff, man, I'm a big fan. You're very inspirational. I if I I've used you as some motivation because man, I'm kind of could be a fucking lazy American where I just like I just want to play video games and I'll practice and be like, oh wait,
yeah,
this
the video games is
board
awesome though.
he exists, so I need to go and get my
Ah,
chops
that.
in. So man, I appreciate you coming on. Would you like to plug any of your social medias? You have a YouTube channel, right?
Uh, I have a YouTube channel for sure, but it's a little bit. It's better to follow my Facebook and Instagram for the daily updates, I guess. But I'm Baard Kolstad on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You will be pretty updated with what I do.
Please check him
Yeah.
out. And dude, thank you so much for being here. And I hope to see you down the road, brother.
Thank you so much to be asked.
Thank you, sir.